now strike the Gaza City very soon. In fact, not just this, the Israeli soldier has accused the Hamas of trying to use civilians as human shields and has even ordered nearly half of Gaza's population to evacuate their homes ahead of an expected ground offensive. So an all-out ground assault that would be taking place in the northern part of the Gaza City, as a result of which the Israeli government and the military spokesperson has asked the people living in the area to move to the south areas. Listen in to that statement that's coming from the Israeli military spokesperson.
חמאס רוצה את האוכלוסייה כמגן אנושי. חמאס רוצה נפגעים עזתים להראות לעולם שיש לו הרוגים ופצועים. אנחנו ממשיכים לדרבן את תושבי העיר עזה. רדו דרומה, סעו דרומה מעבר לנחל עזה. חמאס רוצה אתכם כמגן אנושי. זה למען ביטחונכם האישי. אנחנו הולכים לתקוף רחב מאוד בעיר עזה בזמן הקרוב. חמאס רוצה...
All right, so there you heard a very strong warning that's coming in from the Israeli military spokesperson, saying that a ground offensive, assault rather, would take place in the Gaza City, asking people to move towards the south part of the Gaza City. Beg your pardon, towards way beyond the southern part of the Gaza City. For now, let's move on to more news break coming in. Now, in another development that came in, President Biden has now held talks with the Palestinian president. In fact, note that this is the first talk that he's had with the Palestinian president, given the situation. Earlier, of course, Antony Blinken held one-on-one meet with the Palestinian president. So several rounds of talks happening to come to a conclusion as far as this conflict is concerned. Not just this, President Biden even held the fifth round of talks with Netanyahu. So back-to-back round of talks happening as we speak. One, of course, of President Biden dialing the Palestinian president, and the second with the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on the situation. Listen in to that soundbite of the US president on the situation that is only escalating in the Gaza Strip and Israel as a whole.
Humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Innocent Palestinian families, and the vast majority of them, nothing to do with Hamas. They're being used as human shields. Yesterday I spoke for over an hour with a family member of those Americans who are still unaccounted for on a Zoom call. They've endured an agony of not knowing what's happened. Not the same thing, but I can tell you what it's like. It's one thing to lose someone you know you're going to lose and be there with them and hold their hands, like I was able to do with my son. It's a very other thing to get a phone call I got years ago saying, there's been an accident. Your wife and daughter are dead. I'm not sure. Your boys are going to make it. The uncertainty of those 2 or 3 hours trying to get back to find out. It's the worst feeling in the world. It's gut-wrenching. And it's yet another reminder that hate never goes away. Humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Innocent Palestinian families, and the vast majority of them, nothing to do with Hamas. They're being used as human shields. Yesterday I spoke for over an hour with a family member of those Americans who are still unaccounted for on a Zoom call. They've endured an agony of not knowing what's happened. Not the same thing, but I can tell you what it's like. It's one thing to lose someone you know you're going to lose and be there with them and hold their hands, like I was able to do with my son. It's a very other thing to get a phone call I got years ago saying, there's been an accident. Your wife and daughter are dead. I'm not sure. Your boys are going to make it. The uncertainty of those 2 or 3 hours trying to get back to find out. It's the worst feeling in the world. It's gut-wrenching. And it's yet another reminder that hate never goes away.
Let's cut across to more news break coming in ahead of ground assault that would be carried out by Israeli army on the Gaza City. Prime Minister Netanyahu held a meet with the Israeli soldiers who've been stationed in southern Israel. Now this, of course, ahead of an expected ground offensive against the Hamas group that would be carried out in Gaza. Netanyahu has also surveyed the aftermath and damage from the attacks by the Hamas group. So we'll just put out those visuals also of Netanyahu holding meet with the Israeli soldiers. Not just this, Netanyahu even surveyed the area that showed the aftermath of the Hamas attack. So as we speak, there you see those are the visuals coming in of Netanyahu holding meet with the soldiers. These soldiers have been stationed in South Israel. This as the Israeli army is preparing for a ground assault. Not just this, Benjamin Netanyahu was also heard speaking with the Israeli army, asking if the army is ready for that ground offensive that would be launched expected to be launched in some days from now. And while the airstrikes continue in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli army spokesperson also issuing a warning, asking the people in the Gaza City to evacuate to safer places. So while the airstrikes, the counter-strikes continue on part of the Israeli army, Netanyahu holding meet with the soldiers, seen boosting the morale of his army, saying that, in fact, asking them if they are ready for the ground offensive. This as a ground assault is expected on part of Israel on the Gaza City. Now, the ongoing Israel versus Hamas war has left behind a trail of destruction in the Gaza City. Buildings have been reduced to rubble, hospitals have been overflowing with patients, and even casualties that is only mounting with every passing day. And this in the backdrop of reports coming of a mega counter-offensive that would be taking place in the Gaza City. Here's a detailed report with all the updates.
8 days after Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on Israel. Israel is striking back hard.
Gaza City is where the focus and the hub of Hamas activities are. That is where most of the commanders are. Most of their infrastructure and their ability to continue to operate against the IDF is focused in Gaza City, also the largest center of population. Yesterday, we issued a demand for Palestinian civilians in Gaza, in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, Gaza City and its surroundings, to move north, to move south, and evacuate themselves to this place here, the Gaza River, in order to be safer and in order to not be in an area where we are going to enhance our military operations. We use the words significant military operations.
The 24-hour ultimatum to Gaza civilians has now come to an end. From dropping pamphlets to ordering civilians in Gaza to evacuate. Launching airstrikes, Israel is going all out in its fight against terror. But it is the civilians having to bear the brunt of this ever-raging war.
ايش في حاج وين رايحين؟
ترحيل
ليه ايش صار؟ احكي لي.
ولا شيء بدنا نشيل رزقك من السماء. بس ارحلوا من المنطقه طلعوا من منطقه الجندي بس هلا صرنا اخذنا حالنا وطلعنا. اكثر ما عملناش شيء.
وين رايحين؟
رايحين عند صراط الدير بعد الواد قالوا لنا.
وبس كيف سبت غزه؟ ايش وضع غزه الان؟
ولا شيء بالنسبه لمنطقتك امنه وقالوا لنا انتم امنه مش امنه اطلع من المنطقه. طلعونا من المنطقه بس.
The destruction in Gaza has been widespread. Residential buildings have been reduced to a rubble. Hospitals inundated.
انصحوا الناس تروحوا بيوتها يا عمي، قصفوا الناس اللي شاردة بشاحنات شاردين.
قصفوا الشاحنات؟ قصفوا الشاحنات ومسعفات وكل الناس.
قصفوا الناس الشاردة يا الله، قالوا الناس اشردوا وقصفوا الناس الشاردة. يمكن حيجي لكم لقيت 150 ل 200 شهيد.